Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. My name is Billy Newman. I'm here with Marina Hansen. How are you doing, Marina?
Hey, Billy. I'm doing well.
Thanks for doing a podcast in the studio. We had a couple photos that are going up on Instagram and Hootsuite, or from Hootsuite to Facebook to all the other places online that I can get them. And there's a few from the Alvord that are going up in the last couple of days. I wanted to talk about those in the podcast today. And you see a couple of them up on the screen, Marina.
I do.
Alvord was so long ago.
It was. That was what I was thinking.
I was a little startled by that when I was thinking about, 2014. Oh, 2014? It's 2017 now. That sounds like it's really different.
That sounds pretty
Even though
different.
it's only a couple of days, but man, sounds really different. I mean, I suppose it's really not much more than 2 years ago. Kind of working on the third year now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like a lot when you say 2014 to 2017.
It does sound like a
Oh my
lot.
gosh, that's so different. But it was a great trip. I really enjoyed going out there to the Alvord for the first time and only time so far. A shame, really, because
Yeah.
the Alvord's so cool. There's so much to do out there. It's so flat and desolate though, and it was pretty heavy exposure for a bit, and it's a huge drive to get out there. It's
It really
pretty,
is.
yeah. It's like right on the Nevada border. It's pretty much like driving to Burning Man. If you're going to try and drive out to the middle of a playa desert in Nevada, this is about the closest thing to that no one knows about. But it's pretty cool. It's interesting that part of the world is that type of terrain sort of produces this effect in a handful of places. These big old lake beds from mountains that used to get snowfall that don't anymore. And that snowfall once had tributaries that ran off of it from the snow melt, and that ran together to build a pooled lake at the base of that watershed. And you see that like in all sorts of different places around the terrain in that area, or these big areas where there's a lake or excuse me, like a river that drained off of a mountain range that was supposed to go to a spot where there was a lake. And then now that doesn't get the rain that it used to, the snowpack that it used to. So now there's things like the Alvord Desert that have been there for a long time that are just dried up areas. And it's interesting when you think about how much that terrain has changed over the years in ways that we can really see. This isn't super ancient. The remnants of the lake are still very much there. And you can see them. In fact, it gets damp there still.
Right.
So it's not a past existence. It's something that did exist, in human history, right? It was something that was probably around, and I think as I understand it, was around hundreds of years ago, like 500, 600, 700 years ago. This whole area in Eastern Oregon was really quite a bit more wet than it is now.
I had heard that, or I think I'd heard it from you, actually.
I remember when we were in Hard Mountain and we read like up to this line on this rim rock, it was water as far as the eye can see. And you're looking out over thousands of acres. It was like, that's a huge lake. You're saying this was an entire lake out here, but it's like got 300 years of history of people just living on it as a desert? That's really strange.
Yeah.
Or just like how quickly that would have changed. I mean, you see like big lake beds in that area still, but they're real shallow and they only fill up every once in a while. But it was just really, really strange to think about. And there's a few other lakes that I think we haven't gone to yet, like Poker Jim Ridge and Abert Rim.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few lakes that are kind of off to the sides of those. And I think they're still pretty substantial. They're still pretty big. They might be dammed up. I'm not really sure, but they're like alkali lakes. Have you seen an alkali lake before? It's strange that the borders of the lake has a lot of white that washes up and it sort of stains the border of the rock. Not like algae, like you might see at a reservoir or a pond or something as the water starts to go out over time. You'll see like sediment lines.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it might be alkaline, but it looks like a leach of a chemical or something like on the rocks, and no fish live in it. It's really caustic to live in because it's such a high alkali level that it's not hospitable to life.
I think I have seen that before.
Yeah.
It's a strange looking phenomenon.
It's really strange. And I think it leaches up from the ground that's out there in Eastern Oregon that's not really exposed to a lot of water. And it seems like it's a lot of stagnant water in some ways, or it's water that has to kind of stay in the area and soaks in. And there's a lot of sediment that doesn't really get to be washed out. So I wonder, and I'm sure geologically there's areas that they're alkali lakes and non-alkali lakes, just depending on what the sediment of the soil is where the lake ended up being formed.
Hmm.
Something about that. But that'd be a heck. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. But I do know we were out in the Alvord in September of 2014. It was a pretty cool trip. We spent like 10 days in the area, up in the Steens and then in the Alvord. It was really cool. I remember it was pretty hot in the day, but I'm glad we went in September when it probably started to cool off a little bit. Like up in the Steens, it had already started freezing.
Right.
Isn't that strange how that is? Yeah, it's like up in you're in the fall, you're in aspens that are like turning pretty heavy colors and maybe already
Yeah.
past their spot in color. And it's it's freezing out. There's frost on the tent and stuff. And in some spots you have to like wrap up in every layer when you're up and you go up the hill even further up into higher elevations. But down here in the desert part where the sun beats down on it all day, it gets pretty warm. And I bet in the summertime it would be pretty rough out there.
I would bet that's true. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to go out there in the summer.
Ugh, yeah.
It was really cool going in September though. I liked it a lot. It was nice getting to just kind of hang out during the day and walk around barefoot.
Oh yeah, it was real nice. Yeah, it's interesting how mellow it is out there. I thought that there would have been, I don't know, something about it, or just more rocks or more whatever, more disturbance of
Oh
it that would have
yeah.
been something where we couldn't
It's
do that.
really not it's really not until you're kind of closer to the edges that there are the bushes and little rocks and
Right.
things.
That's just the
But yeah, it's
sagebrush
really
just
just
starting to
miles of
reclaim everything.
flat nothing. It's just playa
Yeah, it's just
for
playa and they've
miles
been
and
washed
miles.
out.
It's really a very cool spot
Yeah.
that I want to go back
Not
to.
many rocks, not much trash. I wonder if there's people that go out
Yeah,
there
no
and kind of
trash.
sort for that sort of thing. I'm sure that there's some effort in some way, but I know like in the Black Rock Desert where they do Burning Man, of course that's like 40,000 people that all show up at once. This, I think, until we were there, I think it was a pretty secluded area of Oregon for travel stuff. I think
I think
like
so.
for at least in the last decade, I've seen the Wallowa Mountains go up a ton, and I've seen the Alvord go up a ton.
It was us, Billy.
I hope so. Of little
I think
secret
it was.
trendsetters. But I know we were doing it. At least it was simultaneous thinking if everybody else started getting pumped up about doing silly things like that.
Yeah,
But I hope it was us. At least we were ahead of the curve. We were on the
we
curve.
certainly were. Yeah.
Wanting to live in your car.
Hey, it's pretty fun.
Ooh, yeah. Uh, but yeah, I think that yeah, we had a handful of film photos that went up from the Alvord trip. I remember we shot almost all film for that trip,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah, I focused just a little bit because I saw the D2H, which was kind of going out for me in 2014 and 2015 and 16 really really heavily. I worked with just film, with just those film cameras that I had, and I had that N80 at the time that now you have. And that was great to use. I had a ton of fun working with it for the couple of days that we were out there. I think some of my favorite photos, like up here on this wall with my portfolio, there's a couple from the Alvord that were really cool, and I really like the sunrise shot where you just see all the crackled ground of the playa that kind of stretches out for miles and miles up to
Yeah.
the sunrise just breaking over. And I really love the way the you really see the red in the spectrum of light that's kind of pulling over the horizon. It looks pretty, and you kind of see it shining or reflecting off the soil of the playa. I really like that part of it. And the photos that we have went up, it was some fun stuff of like the CRV. I remember
Yeah.
driving it out there. That was really cool. Taking the CRV on a cool little desert trip.
Yeah, that's one of the really fun parts about getting to go out there is that when it's dry and you would be going out there, you can just drive your car on it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love that you just kind of pull out into it, and it's pretty sturdy. I thought it was going to be like a sand pit. I was worried about that idea. Like, what if it was just
Oh, yeah. That
like
would
a
be
sandy
awesome.
beach that you're whoa, 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 and you're bogged down. You can't move. You just see burned out cars kind
That'd
of
be
all
terrible.
stuck out in the playa that you can't get out.
It was nice and hard, thank goodness.
Yeah, it was real sturdy. You can get going out there real fast. You just kind of
Yeah,
float
it's a lot
around
of
like
fun.
you're in a boat or something. It's kind of fun. You don't really get many opportunities to do that in your car. Where like in a boat,
Yeah.
you can just kind of turn and steer, go anywhere you want to. But it was fun going out there. I think it's like 7 by 12 miles, so it's really significant. I think it's almost as far as the limit for the curvature of the Earth, and where you start to see that roll off of that thing very distant from you, roll off because of the
Right.
curvature of the Earth. I think it's around 8 miles or so on a flat surface, but I'm not sure. That's why, like, I mean, of course, like in this picture, you can see out to the end of the Alvord and then up to the mountains behind it. But on the flat surface itself, where there's very little elevation change, you actually see you can't see the end of it. I hear, if I understand correctly, from if at 1 inch above the ground to to the other end of it because of the curvature. It's interesting, but you probably couldn't see it for a bajillion other reasons of like air quality and all the other things, and dust and mirages. Do you remember how you couldn't really see out, or like we'd see that little kite car, that little kite.
Oh yeah,
trike.
the little kiteboard.
Yeah, and like you'd see it, but it would just be like this weird ripply pattern.
Yeah.
Sort of surrounded by nothing, and then poof, it would kind of pop out a few miles away, like a mile away. You wonder what else is out there 8 miles on that is just disappeared to me. But yeah, it would just be this kind of white ripple, and then it would show up.
Yeah.
You see like a
little guy
shooting around. You're like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? And then he's like right there. You're like, oh, hey, what's up?
Yeah, you just pour it up.
Didn't see you coming, man. Yeah, it's really strange how that was, but it was cool out there. So yeah, there's a couple photos that were about that and showing off some of the stuff that we did in the Alvord. But it was a really sweet trip that we did. It was a lot of fun. I want to get back out there with you.
Yeah, I'd really like to also. That's one of my favorite spots we've been to in Oregon.
I know the springtime is a tough area because it's going to be wet, it's boggy and stuff like that. But I know that September is probably the best time.
I was thinking we should at least go September.
Our second trip will be in September.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good.
That might work all right.
I'll go twice this year.
We should really do it.
I was thinking, it out. The Steens are right there if it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely go to the Steens.
Like if we get out there and then the weather was wrong.
There's much of the year. I'm sure it would be great. I mean, probably May. I mean, I've been out there. We've been out there before. Like end of May, it's kind of warm in that area sometimes. And in the Alvord, like you notice, you're not up in the mountains like you're in the Steens. Mm-hmm. You're down and you're in it. You're in the valley and it gets hotter. It seems like, and it's probably a harsher, heavier exposure down there. But that's a tough thing to deal with too. Like what we were talking about earlier, is it's just so bleak and desolate. There's nowhere to go. So if you're just stuck out in 100-degree heat or even 80-degree heat in late May, it's like hard. Or it's just like, oh, I'm gonna get sunburnt and it's gonna be tough. Still to go. Yeah. It's a beautiful spot. Very at night cool. And in the morning at the edges of the day. If you can get a dark night where there's just stars, there's going to be no light pollution in that area, which would be one of the best parts of going there. But man, in the middle of the day, high noon, it's a rough spot. Yeah. That's a rough spot. Yeah. And there's really nowhere to go. No entertainment, no bug out spot that you can really get to. I guess you could like sleep in the day, bring a motor home, just chill out on the inside, then party at night. That'd be the place for it, out in the Alvord. So yeah, I think it's a handful of the photos we got. It was fun to go through them, put them up again. Yeah,
it was fun seeing those ones come out today.
I liked a couple of these side shots. I want to go back through all of those photos and see if there's any other fun photos that, because I know we kind of edited down a little bit. I'm sure there's some other stuff that's kind of an interesting take or angle or a little alternative to something that we maybe had something similar of that would look different now, years on. But I think it'd be fun for us to go back through and check a few of those things. I remember really using everything that was relatively workable and usable. Mm-hmm. So I remember that being pretty competent. But I'm not really sure. Yeah, we should poke around a little bit, see if there's other cool photos to put up.
Yeah, it's always cool going back and seeing if there are like little side photos that are kind of cool.
Right. I do really like doing that. I do appreciate kind of going back, seeing those old pictures. I did try on, I did want them to work out. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty aware of that. The photos I did pick were really good, but I know a number of photos, my favorites maybe in fact, are a few that I didn't realize I had first. So I'm really glad to go back through and do a second pass or see like what you're interested now visually. You kind of adapt over time, and the way you want to put something together, it might be a little different later, or you might be aware of some tool or some way you can use it graphically that you weren't aware of before. Yeah,
you kind of see the elements in it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I've noticed that a few times where, like my understanding of line is a little better. I say, oh yeah, actually this is really a better type of angle, or something like that. I can work with this a little bit more. So that's kind of an interesting part of it. It's kind of neat. We should do a bunch of stuff like that this year, though. Be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for doing this little podcast with me and Marina.
Thanks for having me on your podcast, Billy. It's cool seeing these pictures come through again.
Talk about some old photos.
I like seeing
some
old
trips to the Alvord. That'll be cool. But yeah, we'll probably have another podcast coming out on our little feed sometime later this week. And I think until then, I'm going to say thank you very much, Marina, for joining me for this episode of the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Billy.
Really appreciate it. So on behalf of Marina Hansen, my name is Billy Newman, and I say thank you, the small audience there is, for checking out this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast.